starting at about 5 after, just as I am still admitting quite a few people. So I just want to make sure everybody's here before we start. We will be starting in just a few minutes, just still admitting quite a few people. Hope everybody's having a nice Tuesday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Okay. All right, we will just be getting started in about a minute. Just want to make sure that everybody's here. There are 64 people here. Wow, it's a great turnout. All right, so it is now 5 after 3, so I am going to get started, and I'll still be letting people in throughout, but I'm going to go ahead and just introduce the program for the workshop today and my fellow presenters. My name is E. Connor. You may have talked with me on the phone or emailed with me if you already work with SPD. I am the Special Accounts Associate. This is the very first of our mini series of workshops that we are calling SPD Summer School. SPD Summer School is a 3-part series of hour-long workshops by SPD directors, managers, and staff aimed at illuminating the current state of small press publishing. As the industry changes with COVID-19, this nuts and bolts program aims to demystify the distribution process and provide foundational knowledge that will allow publishers to better adapt to the present moment according to their specific needs and priorities. While this workshop is intended to serve publishers we already work with, SPD is offering this free to the general public so that we might support any emerging small press publishers as well as authors and booksellers curious about how distribution can affect sales and publicity. And I'm just admitting a few more people. And this is our first workshop, Metadata, Marketing in the Small Press. It will cover Metadata 101 with some names and faces you might already be familiar with, of course, if you are already working with SPD. Hilary and Janice Worthen make up our incredible data team and will be presenting on Metadata 101. And Trisha Low, SPD's publicity manager, will present on the efficacy of free and paid publicity options. There will be time for a short Q&A at the very end of the presentations. And I am going to just do a little bit of housekeeping. So if at the very top of if you're not familiar with Zoom, the very top of your screen, there's an option for speaker view. If you turn on speaker view, you're making sure that you're always going to see the person talking instead of everybody else. And that can be very helpful. You are going to be unable to unmute yourself. So if you do have a question for the presenters, if you could please put it in the chat. I will be keeping track of the questions in a document, and we will answer them at the very end. Please don't ask the question more than once, just to kind of save space. We are going to be recording this, and we will be sharing both the recordings and all of the slides at some point later. If you registered with Eventbrite, we have your email address and we can email you all of this. And I will also be putting any links mentioned in the presentations in the chat, so you can take a look at those earlier if you'd like. And then I will also put a link to a survey that we made for this event, so that you can give us some feedback about it, how well that worked out for you. And I'm just going to go ahead and let Hilary take it away. As soon as I can unmute.
Okay, hello everyone. As you mentioned, I'm Hilary. I'm the Data Associate at SPD. Today I will be doing a quick overview about metadata that was created by our awesome data manager, Janice. So what is metadata? So things we're going to go over today are, we're going to go over specifically what is metadata, what it comprises of, why is metadata important, and how do others get your metadata, how it is used. Finally, how you create effective metadata. And at the end, I'm going to give you a couple links to help you accomplish this task. So let's start off with our first question. So what is metadata? Metadata is the information that describes your books. For example, it is the title, the ISBN, the pub date, etc., listed up here on the screen. It's comprised of many pieces, as you can see, and some of these pieces are vital, such as your ISBN, while others are recommended, like blurbs or a headline. Some pieces of your metadata are easy to fix. If you make a mistake, for example, blurbs, copy, etc. Others are really hard to fix if you make a mistake. These include your ISBN and your pub date. So make sure before transmitting that information, you double check to make sure those are correct. It is important to remember that the more complete and accurate your metadata is, the better chance your book has of success. So why is metadata important? Metadata helps people find your book and decide whether or not to buy it. It also tells librarians and retailers how to shelve and categorize your book. Effective metadata can increase sales, target specific or multiple audiences, help middle sellers find and categorize your book, and most importantly, it can help your book stand out. Scheduling metadata is important. If you do not properly plan and schedule, you may lose any advantages complete and targeted metadata will give you. SPD needs your metadata at least 3 months before the pub date to ensure sales channels are open before the pub date of the book. So how do others get your metadata, and how is it used? Middle sellers, for example, booksellers, wholesalers, retailers, and online retailers, can get your data from several sources, such as a distributor, a printer that offers distribution services, or directly from you via things like an Amazon Advantage account. In the case of small press distribution, our publishers submit their metadata to us, and then we transmit it to the industry, which includes places like Amazon, Ingram, Baker and Taylor, etc. Different pieces of your metadata are important to different customers. A headline, for example, a bold sentence at the top of your description, is geared toward individuals and is meant to capture the attention of a casual browser. A BISAC code, on the other hand, is geared toward middle sellers and librarians who may use them to grow a particular section in their bookstore or library. The BISAC code tells middle sellers and librarians where to shelve a book. BISAC codes are more important than you may think. For example, you may think the general poetry BISAC code is sufficient for your poetry book. However, a librarian might want to expand their poetry section to include more titles by Black poets. That librarian might overlook your book because you failed to provide the additional BISAC code that indicates this is a book by a Black poet. Additionally, places like Amazon may not connect your poetry book to additional relevant categories because you only provided one BISAC code, and that might mean fewer eyes looking at your book. Now that we have a basic understanding of what metadata is, we are going to switch gears and give you simple ways to create effective metadata. So we're going to start off with the ISBN. This is the most important piece of information about your book. An ISBN is an international standard book number and consists of 13 digits. The ISBN equals your book. So this is the most important piece of metadata to get right. Check and double check before sending the ISBN to your distributor. Your ISBN must be purchased from Bowker, the official ISBN agency for the United States, and that the registered owner of the ISBN at Bowker must be the publisher listed in your metadata. Additionally, there's a section in your Bowker data for distributor. Put your distributor there. For SPD publishers, this is where you would put small press distribution. If the incorrect or wrong ISBN is transmitted to the industry, it's very hard to fix and can hurt the sales of your book. Your title. If your title is too generic, your book may be hard or impossible to find via search engine unless the buyer has the author's name or some other piece of metadata. For example, the title Dogs is too generic because when searching will bring up thousands of results. Similarly, a title composed with all symbols or numbers can be impossible to search for and find both on retail sites and in databases. So this should also be avoided. Your author bio. An author bio does not mean a long, complete history of the author. You want to keep it short. Your author bio should include other books by the author, significant awards that they have won, social media handles, and maybe an interesting fact or two. For the interesting fact, mention things that might speak to potential readers. For example, what communities is the author a part of? Your publication date. The pub date is the date you tell the industry the book should be available to buy. This date is complicated in the small press world because we don't really operate by the strict on-sale process that large publishing houses follow. As a distributor, we expect to have a new title in stock 1 month before the pub date, so we have time to get copies to middle sellers before that date. So the book is technically available before the pub date. Additionally, SPD must have your metadata 3 months before the publication date in order to transmit that data and make sure sales channels are open before the book is in stock in our warehouse. So if you have a pub date of September 15th, SPD would need to receive the metadata for that book no later than June 15th, which is 3 months, and SPD should expect to receive the physical copies of that book no later than August 15th, or 1 month. The pub date shouldn't be moved around. If you need to move your launch of the book, once the pub date is transmitted, it can make that data seem unreliable if the pub date is changed or might make customers worry that there are problems or delays with the book. COVID-19 has caused many publishers to want to change their pub dates to a later time when events are possible and bookstores are open again. But this can actually be a mistake as the wave of new titles come out in the fall, and there's no telling what effects the pandemic will have in the fall. It might give you an edge to have your book available now and do a launch a little bit later. Keywords. Keywords make the book more discoverable and give the reader a better idea of what the book is about. Choose up to 10 words that fit your book. Ask yourself what terms might a general reader type into a search engine to find your book. For example, LGBTQIA or Asian American or so on. You can include phrases, but only do so if it's something someone would enter into a search engine. Include genres, topics, time periods, and what's most relevant to your book. You are the best person to create keywords for your book because you know your book. It's hard for someone who has not read or seen your book to create keywords for it. Headlines. Headlines are a short statement. Think of them as a highlight at the top of the book's description and should be in bold. Their purpose is to grab a casual browser's attention. For example, The Yellow House by Sarah M. Broom, winner of the National Book Award for Nonfiction in 2019. We do not currently display headlines on our site, but can transmit them to the industry. Headlines should be one sentence and no more than 200 words. When creating one, ask yourself, what makes this book unique? What are its key features? What would make a reader want to give it a try? Types of things to include are awards or nomination, praise from an excellent review or blurb, a brief description of what the book is about, or an appeal to the book's primary audience. The copy includes the description, blurbs, and reviews. It is the sales pitch for your book. Why should someone read it? What is it about, and why is it important? The description should be longer than 200 words, but longer doesn't necessarily mean better. General guideline to use when creating a copy is a paragraph of description and 2 blurbs or review pull quotes. Keywords should be incorporated into the description and can also be used as a guide in creating one. BISAC codes. These codes are provided by the Book Industry Study Group that the book industry uses to categorize, shelve, and market your book. These codes tell database owners, librarians, and middle sellers what genres your book fits in. If possible and appropriate, you should use more than one. How to choose effective BISAC codes. First, you want to choose the major genre or category of your book. Is it poetry, fiction, or nonfiction? Then, what is it specifically about? For example, it could be nature. Include the BISAC code for that. And finally, is the author part of a specific community? Black, women, LGBTQIA, etc. Then use the code for that. SPD can accommodate 3 BISAC codes. Like keywords, you are the best person to categorize your book and choose its BISAC codes because you know what it's about, who your audience is, and what communities you belong to. The price. Your price should at least cover your costs for producing a single copy, but you should aim for a return that will help your publishing project be sustainable. First, determine how much your book will cost you to print per copy, then factor in other costs such as marketing, distribution, shipping, etc. What margin do you need to thrive? SPD strongly encourages pricing full-length books at $18 or above. Large publishing houses might be able to afford pricing lower than that cost on some titles because of the volume they plan to sell. In the small press world, we can't do that. It's important to keep in mind that most books aren't actually sold at the list price, and a higher price doesn't necessarily mean you're limiting the amount of people who can access your book. It's better to have a higher list price and then offer a discount if readers order directly from your site, which SPD allows and even encourages since you get the largest cut from direct sales. So to break down the math of $18, a standard discount for wholesalers and middle sellers is 40%, and a standard cut from your distributor is usually 50% and is applied to the net sales, what the book is sold for, not the list price. For SPD publishers, more information on SPD royalty tiers can be found under discount and payment on page 11 in the SPD Publisher Handbook. So for a book priced at $18, the publisher would most likely receive $5.40 back per copy. Does that cover your printing and shipping costs, distribution fees, author payments, etc.? If not, find a cheaper means of printing or raise the price. And lastly, now that we understand the basics of metadata and what is needed to create effective metadata, here are some links that will help you accomplish this task. The first is the list of BISAC codes to help you categorize your book. This website offers an easily searchable list of all available codes. The second link is to Bowker, where you can purchase your ISBNs. And the final one is to the SPD Publisher Handbook that gives you specific information that is needed as an SPD publisher. This presentation, along with the SPD Metadata Guide, will be supplied on our website for future references as well.
All right, thank you so much, Hilary.
You're welcome.
And thanks everybody for asking such thoughtful questions in the chat, and we will answer those at the very end. And now I will unmute Trisha.
Hey guys, just give me a second. I'm gonna, Hilary, do you mind unsharing your screen?
I am trying to get there.
Oh, there you go. Sweet.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
It's not unsharing.
That was really awesome. Okay. Sorry. 1 second. Zoom choreography is like really somehow very bad for me. So I appreciate everybody's patience with this presentation. Hi, I don't know if we've spoken before, but I'm Trisha and I'm the publicity manager at Small Press Distribution. And I appreciate everybody being here today. I think that, you know, with the advent of COVID, we've gotten a lot of questions about what publishers can do in this marketplace to help their books. And I really want to stress what Hilary said, which is that, like, you know, metadata really is the best thing that you can do for your book. It seems really simple, and it is not the sexiest option, but it is the thing that will make sure that your book is available and sellable. I'm here to talk about something that's like a little bit more complicated, what I call the bells and whistles portion of stuff. Publicity, right? Which seems at first in this environment to be the most attractive option to promote your book, especially since people are spending a lot of time reading and online and all the rest of it. So I thought I would try to make a presentation about what's worth it and what isn't. And unfortunately, the spoiler is that there's really not a good answer to this question. In small press publishing in particular, there's just not one thing that works for everyone, especially in this arena. And I want to stress that, you know, the goal of my presentation is to kind of help you make informed decisions about what works best for each of your titles in terms of publicity. Something that works for someone might not work for someone else. The only thing that works for everybody is metadata. Okay. So I just thought I would put this out there. This really is the paradox of our entire field, which is that, you know, we want to help out and represent underrepresented authors and experimental writing. Obviously, that's not that great for our bottom line. And that's why I really want to stress that publicity in this regard, when it's paid, is really a bells and whistles kind of thing. Everybody's margins are so thin that it's really something that I think you should make sure that it's going to give you at least some return, or you should make an informed decision when you're paying for publicity. Free publicity, on the other hand, is super great and often really great for our community. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But from what I saw in the gallery view, lots of you guys are veterans. So I'm going to skim past some of the more basic stuff so we can chat a little bit more at the end. I keep stressing this, but it's really true. The thing that metadata really does is to let retailers, stores, as well as news outlets and media know that your book is forthcoming. Providing them accurate information in the way that they're used to seeing it means that they can really digest that information and put it on their radars to expect it. And then after that, ensuring that the books are available at SPD to buy at the time where they expect to be able to buy it is kind of crucial. We have sort of like, sometimes a simple mistake is that just because right now with the mail being so slow, if books arrive late after like a large order is placed because a book is getting a lot of publicity, then you're gonna sort of miss out on those sales a little bit. And I can't guarantee that people will try to reorder the book. So that kind of like the chain of information and timing is a really secure way of making sure that, you know, your books do the best that they can do in the marketplace. So this just goes to show what I was saying, which is that, you know, metadata is like an achievable set of goals that progress along a straight line, as you can see in this diagram. And publicity is kind of like a loopy game, and you just don't really know sometimes like whether the success of your book is because of a certain piece of publicity that happened, or because, you know, the timing was just right. Like, you know, the thing about publicity is that even though we can look at KPIs and like sales analytics and all that, it's very difficult to point to one thing being the reason for a book's success in that arena. So yeah. So I'll just skip past this a little bit. Here are some options for paid publicity that I know that people have been interested in. I mean, I think the main division when it comes to publicity is kind of like paid and free. And in terms of ad buys, the main difference would be ad buys in print, ad buys in digital. And then there's stuff that, you know, middle buyers like Amazon and Ingram sell, which I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. The stuff that Amazon and Ingram sells tends to benefit their system more than yours. And, you know, part of the struggle that SPD has is to kind of make sure that you guys have titles and information that can work within those systems. That's our job. And, you know, if you wanted to place a paid Amazon ad, you could talk to me about it, and we just want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that works for you. But like, you know, paid Amazon ads, you know, I had an author think that it was going to get him on the Amazon bestseller list if he paid for an Amazon ad. But that's kind of a rigged system because it's all in the Amazon system. It's not going to do anything else for the book beyond that system. And that's what I tried to stress to him. The other thing that I like to emphasize on this slide is the hiring paid freelance publicists. I know that that's not popular because they're usually really expensive, but I do think in the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of cheaper freelance publicists who really know the small press field, rather than people who are just going to try to sell like 100 copies of your book to Barnes and Noble. And so, you know, some people will even do partial campaigns for like $500, which seems a lot. But I know people who have worked out a payment plan in like to a publicist in lieu of royalties to the author. That's something that you guys can work out. And I have referrals if people are interested in that. So I just wanted to put these up for comparison. These are your average print ad prices. I wanted to do a smaller mag and then a larger publication. You know, like I said, it's whatever works for you guys, but I do think that with the cost of print ads these days, it's not worth it for a small press. I mean, Bomb Magazine is a smaller publication and their rates are still quite high, as you can see on the left. The right-hand rates are for Poets and Writers magazine, which are a little, you know, they could be considered to be affordable. But when you think about, you know, maybe like paying a freelance publicist $500 for a partial campaign versus like, you know, a $400 ad in Poets and Writers, like I just like to make that comparison to show that, you know, something that is within the field rather than something that one is expected to do can give a better return. Which is not to say that if you wanted to buy a print ad, you know, you couldn't, like if you have a budget for it. I do think it's kind of like a good way to get a little bit more mainstream attention or reach a wider audience than small press. I'm a fan of digital ads in general. I would really recommend, if you guys are interested, working with Justin Alvarez, who is the ad manager at LitHub and at The Believer, and I can give him your information, but he's really flexible on prices when it comes to small presses, and he's really willing to work with you. The ad prices on the left are for forward reviews, and the thing that I like about their plan is that you can see that there's something called CPM on that left-hand image, and that means cost per meal or cost per thousand, which means that they charge a price, a basic price for every 1,000 views of your ad on their website. That doesn't mean that, like, you know, your ad will definitely get seen by 1,000 people. It just means that it'll load 1,000 times when the website is accessed. But that gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of cost. The right side, ad rates are from Entropy, who I also really recommend working with. They also have reduced rates for small presses and nonprofits. And the thing about both of these publications is that they're much more within our community. So whatever ad that you buy will have a larger impact, I think, than like a print ad in Poets and Writers. And like I said, there are all these really great ad managers I can put you in touch with who have more flexible rates because they care about the work that we do. So if you're thinking about buying digital ads, I think that that's like a good way to, ads at all. I think digital ads are a good way to go with publications that are in our circle. That said, you know, I think that the main drawback with digital ads is that ad blockers exist now. So they don't always exist for everyone. And even if like, you know, your ad loads on a page and it's blocked, that still counts as like a single view in the CPM system. So here are some free publicity options. I just want to point out one in particular. I mean, social media is great, but it's really time consuming. I just want to acknowledge that to everybody. But it's also a really good method right now when everybody's on social media all the time. Library requests, in particular, I've heard people have a lot of success with getting people in different cities and towns to request books at their local library to a librarian. That actually boosts the demand in the system across, like nationally, which means that other librarians and booksellers are more likely to kind of gain knowledge of the book or to be able to recognize that there's some demand there. So that's pretty great. And as you all know, bookseller relationships are really important. There are books that have been, you know, made just by booksellers that didn't get a whole lot of press that booksellers loved and have literally just done really well by hand selling. One thing that I want to stress about free publicity is that it's all stuff that's really labor intensive, but the way that I like to think about it is that it's putting energy into a system that's going to reward all of the books that you eventually publish, right? What it is like investment and goodwill in a set of relationships that are going to regenerate over the course of your time as a publisher. Like that relationship you establish with a bookseller or with a librarian or with a professor that taught your book can continue giving to your press, right? So, you know, I know that it's hard to think about sending out like a bunch of handwritten postcards to a bunch of booksellers that you don't necessarily know, but, you know, if just one bookseller ends up having a good relationship with you, that's going to benefit all of your books. So that's how I like to think about it. Yeah, this is something that's hard. You know, when people buy ad shares from me at SPD, they always say, can you guarantee a certain amount of increase in my sales? And I can show them all the numbers that I have from sales analytics. And, you know, a handpicked ad that I ran for some people will double the amount of sales of the book. And for some people will only sell another 3 or 4 copies. And that is, you know, disappointing to know and kind of like exhausting to think about in terms of like being like, well, I don't really know if it did anything and I paid money for it. So I just want to acknowledge that, you know, it's a game that sucks. Publicity is a game that sucks. Elmo really hates it. But we really love your books. So there's that. So given the fact that like I've just been like, oh, publicity, who knows if it's gonna work or not, whatever. I thought that we could go through a couple of facts that I find to be really useful to think about when considering which kinds of free and paid publicity you want to engage, right? Because these are the things that are just true. There are some things that are just true, which is great. The first one is that paid ads I found really work best in tandem with current attention and when the book is available. So for example, let's say I had a book that I wanted to feature in our paid ad program handpicked in June. And it just so happens that there was a review, like a high profile review that came out the first week of that month, right? Something in the New Yorker or something in the Times or whatever. That will mean basically that the attention that your book is already getting is amplified by the ad and more likely to translate into sales. So when you're thinking about, you know, placing reviews for your book, I think it's really useful to work with, I know that there's this sense that you shouldn't work with friends or like people that you already know because that somehow like devalues the review or the attention that the book is getting. I don't think that's true. If you can work with someone you know and get, you know, a review placed at a certain date, you know, in a publication that's key, that's like key to our community, that's something you can let me know and we can maybe work out an ad to time to come out at that same time. That way you can have a little bit more reassurance that your investment in the ad is going to pay off in some form or the other or get more of a chance of paying off. The other thing is that, you know, I think that in publicity, we focus a lot on the fact that we want to increase sales, but increasing sales does not always translate to profit, right? So let's say, for example, a book got a really big prize. Let's say a small press book won the National Book Award, or, you know, a small press book was featured by a celebrity on Instagram. That's the kind of thing that's going to significantly boost sales, not only to individuals, but especially to middle retailers like Amazon and Ingram. What happens often in that case is that the book sells out, and then the publisher is really frantic because you're like, oh no, Amazon wants another 500 copies, which means I'm going to have to sink more money into a reprint. And that reprint at the moment might seem really important, even if your margins are really thin. But what often happens with those big sales after a high profile event is that a lot of them, like maybe 40 to 50% of them, come back in returns that you're not going to get paid for. So I actually know small publishers who have not necessarily been able to negotiate that so well, and have lost money on a high profile feature because of the reprints that they authorized. You know, Janice or Brent are really, really good people to talk to if this is something that happens for you, because, you know, they've spent a lot of time kind of like thinking about pricing and reprints and all the rest of that. So, you know, in the event that something really awesome like that happens, I recommend that you talk to them. Similarly, for book prizes and paid ads, I think audience is really key. So you want to make sure that you're reaching the people who are more likely to read and be invested in your book. I already covered that thing about relationships. We're getting a little short on time, so I'm gonna skip past. But I will say that, you know, when it comes to free publicity in particular, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you don't follow up, people might not remember you. I know that we all have a really hard time bugging other people, but I think that there's a really nice way to say, like, ask someone to review a book, or ask a publication if they'd like to run a review, and then to do one follow-up after that. Just asking and then following up, I think, will mean that you get a higher return in general. And also, I have some of this time, the way to negotiate publicity and social media and all that stuff in relation to metadata and your new title form in this pre-publication document that I'm sure a lot of you have seen. But it kind of like lays out the timing from 8 weeks before publication all the way through to after the publication of the book. And E's going to send that out after this. I'm going to just skip past this. I can talk a little bit about the kind of free and paid publicity that SPD offers in the question and answer session if you guys are interested, and the slides are going to go out. That information is also available in your publisher's handbook. So this is the COVID-19 slide. I'm going to run through this very quickly, but I think that, you know, what you should do is look at this Google Doc that's on that slide that E's going to send out. That's it's made by Jen Kovitz, who was the sales and marketing manager at Catapult for a really long time, and it has these really, really comprehensive and useful tips for small press publishers specifically during COVID-19 times. And all of these tips are from there, so you guys can check that out. I'll just point out off of this slide that, you know, the most important thing right now for you guys is to make sure that your metadata is clean and your publication schedule allows for some delay because the mail has been really, really slow. Also, you know, the fact of the matter is that even though it's a fraught relationship, we do sell your books to Ingram, and a lot of booksellers and book buyers are really interested in working. Oh, they also fulfill bookshop, which is why I say book buyers. A lot of people are buying from Ingram right now, basically in one way or another, because their terms are better than ours. We want to make sure that we get your books to Ingram right around pub date. But in order for us to do that, we really need the books to be in stock about 1 month before publication date, which seems counterintuitive. But, you know, just because I know that people are really concerned about books being in stock at bookshop and being available to booksellers, that I would say is the main thing to remember right now. And yeah, I mean, I would say that right now, you know, there's so much social media activity and so much sharing of resources that the best way to support your book is to connect it with the community in a way that feels like meaningful and personal to other people. I see a lot of you guys already doing this really awesomely, and I would encourage you to kind of like read all of these documents that, you know, we've provided to you guys, but also just know that like we are in the middle of a pandemic and you're doing the best that you can and we're doing the best that we can and we're already doing a really, really good job. So I'm gonna end now, but the last thing I'll say is that I am always available to do like phone consultations with you guys if you just want to talk through like whether or not it's worth it to buy an ad, or like whether or not you should run that like buy two get one backlist title free promotion. That's part of our services to you, especially since at SPD we know that for small presses, like it's not like a one size fits all solution. So yeah, just feel free to email me anytime, and thank you for being so patient, and we're gonna go into questions.
Thanks, Trisha. I'm gonna go ahead and
sorry that went on a little long, y'all.
no, it did not. Do not apologize. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to unmute Janice. And there is this running document of questions. And we'll just kind of ping pong between Janice and Trisha. We might get through them all. We might have a little bit more time to ask some more questions. It's unclear, but we'll just start at the beginning. So this question is from Karen Alanier. How important is it to use Amazon Advantage? I have found that they never pay us for books sold. And so I would say either Janice or Trisha would be a great person to answer.
I can take this one.
Yay.
Hey everyone, this is Janice. In terms of this question, it really depends on what your goals are. Our publishers are actually not allowed to use Amazon Advantage because we take care of Amazon for them. So that means that the whole reason for that is that Amazon Advantage, it marks a certain person as the source of your books. So if you have an Amazon Advantage account, but we're handling your Amazon, Amazon becomes confused about who the source of your books is. If you are using an Amazon Advantage account, just like it might be the same case with us, Amazon is probably going to benefit the most from that relationship. Really, Amazon is there to for your author, really. You know, many authors want their books available on Amazon. That doesn't necessarily mean that that will be very beneficial for you as the publisher.
Yeah, I'll just add, I'm not that familiar with the intricacies of Amazon Advantage, but I will say, like, from working with them, they have a lot of like what I would call like hidden costs, like stuff that they ding you back for, that might contribute to your profit from that Advantage account being less. But I'm not that sure about how that works for you guys because we're a retailer. But in our relationship with them, it's been like that. So,
and we don't use Amazon Advantage, just to let you know. We actually have a different type of an account. So
yeah. So I can see in this Google Doc that the next two questions are kind of the same question, which is all metadata sent to SPD via the new title form? And do we have a place for BISAC codes on the new title form? And the answer to that is yes. Your metadata is sent to SPD via the new title form. Janice, do you want to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can definitely take this. So we don't have a field for BISAC codes right now. We are optimizing that new title form. For example, the headline field, I don't think is on there yet, but it will be there. So you'll see some changes coming to that. But I do want to say that anything that you don't see on the form that you want us to include in your data, you can always put in comments. So if you have specific BISAC codes that you want to use, please put that in the comment section on the form until we have those fields on there. But I also want to tell you that we do our best when we get your data and you tell us, okay, it's in poetry, but it also covers LGBTQIA issues, that we will choose the best BISAC codes for those categories. So please make sure that you're at least filling out the primary and the secondary categories. We try to send out and assign as many BISAC codes per title as we can and are relevant. So even if you're not really sure which BISAC code fits your book best, don't worry. If you're an SPD publisher, we will be reviewing that and making a decision. If you choose a BISAC code and we don't feel like it's the right choice, we'll let you know when we send you the PO email. So that's not something that doesn't get eyes on it. It definitely, we review every piece of data that you submit, so.
I just want to shout out the data team also, because like unlike literally every other distributor, we manually upload metadata and clean it. Hilary and Janice do a really, really good job of that, but they are the people who like fix your titles, add keywords, like put in BISAC codes that they think should be on there. So, you know, complete information from you is always great, but I just want you to know that they really put, you know, heart and soul into making that metadata the best shape that they can put it in. So thanks, guys.
And there's another question, which I guess, did this get figured out, the metadata new title form question from Eric?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, good. So as a publisher of cross-genre fiction, I often find it difficult to be accurate with BISAC codes. Did that get addressed? I'm sorry, I was a little distracted.
It kind of did, in terms of saying that if you are an SPD publisher, then we help you out with those BISAC codes and we will review and make sure that the correct ones are there. BISAC codes aren't super hard to change. So if you do get one and you find that, I do want to point out that Amazon puts books into categories what we transmit in BISAC codes. So be prepared for that. If they do if they miscategorize your book, or you feel that a category doesn't really apply or isn't perfect and there's a better one, we can actually ask them to make those changes. I think that you can ask them directly too, if you have an account with them. But that might be a case where you want to fine tune your BISAC codes and see if that solves any issues, but yeah.
Lauren Kinney asks if there's a recommended specific sites or tools to aid with keyword research. Like what kinds of keywords would be good, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can actually answer this one too. There's actually a lot of resources online. If you just Google book metadata keyword, you'll find a lot of stuff. I know Ingram has a guide. We actually have a guide that we're going to be adding to our tools for publishers page on our website. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Anne from Third Thing asks, when I update metadata at Bowker, does this flow through to SPD?
That actually does not. Anything you change at Bowker, you need to let whoever is transmitting your metadata know. Bowker, it just sits there. So at SPD, I'm the person you would let know, Janice at spdbooks.org. I can do all updates to your data. So anytime you need, to add review links or blurbs or pull quotes or any update you need, send it to me and we'll get that done.
All right, and then we have another question. How does SPD use Amazon for marketing? And how does its inventory take into account what's at Amazon warehouses and what Amazon returns to SPD unsold?
Trisha, do you want me to cover the Amazon warehouse part?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'll just like introduce Janice's answer to this question by saying that like we really don't have a lot of flexibility in working with Amazon. They are notorious for this. We operate as a customer of theirs, which means they get to dictate, you know, for the most part, what they order, where it goes, and we don't get very much of a say. So I wouldn't even say that we use Amazon for marketing at all. I would also say that, you know, we don't necessarily, yeah, I'm going to let Janice take the rest of this question. Sorry.
Yeah, like Trisha said, Amazon orders from us based on demand, and that's determined by their internal algorithms. They can choose, so they basically, you know, at those algorithms, however they pick up demand, they keep that information internal. Then they place an order when they register demand. As your title gets older, they may choose not to keep even a single copy on hand at any given time. It's really up to Amazon. And so our inventory doesn't take, the inventory you see on our website is the inventory that we have at our SPD warehouse. It doesn't take into account what's at Amazon. When Amazon does return copies to SPD, those are then received back into our inventory.
Okay, so.
All right. Well, there's a request for the loopy line chart to be posted on the website.
It's from that TV show, The Good Place, which I really recommend.
And then Noah asks, how are library requests visible to other bookstores and libraries?
Okay, so I don't know the specifics of this, but I do know that booksellers tend to use Edelweiss. I know some libraries do too. Basically, like if libraries use a number of different systems that demand is inputted into, and that demand generally updates the system. I have to be honest, I have to ask the librarian as to how this works, but generally if you can create demand at one library, other libraries will also want to create demand.
Miet asked, have you had any luck with network or programmatic ads? It seems so cheap to compete with Viagra ads, but on the other hand, it's so cheap.
I have to be honest, I'm not very experienced in this arena. I generally tend to just work through channels that I feel directly serve our community. But, you know, if you wanted to give me a call, I could do some research and reach out and see what the best options for this would be. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. Sorry.
And then Kyle asks, a client of mine is interested in putting a blurb on the front cover of her book. I know that commercial publishers do this, but is it effective in the small press world?
Yeah, I actually do think that blurbs are really effective, especially ones that feel like they really address what the book is about. I also think that like it's a way of connecting the author directly to the community that they come out of. It's kind of like a nice gesture for people to see like, oh, like so-and-so liked this book, maybe I'll like it as well. I know that there's like a lot of feeling about how blurbs have become kind of arbitrary, and it's just like, oh, this book is astounding or whatever. And I guess like what I would say is I would caution against trying to reach out to like big names for blurbs just because you want their name on your book. I think that what you want is a blurb that is from someone who has really engaged with the book, maybe knows the author or is you know in conversation with the author aesthetically. Getting a really good blurb can do a lot, especially if it's close like that. I would say like, you know, a very blah blurb, even if it's from a larger name, will not do very much. Yeah. So it's about engagement. If you can demonstrate engagement, I think the blurb is a great method to go.
And then Patrick is asking, can you be on Bookshop if Ingram is not involved? My impression is it is only for Ingram titles. And there's, yeah, a lot to say about that.
Yeah, there is a lot to say about it. I'll try to keep it short because we're running out of time. But so right now, the way that Bookshop works is that all of their fulfillment is via Ingram. That is true. So in that sense, it is for Ingram titles. That said, because we sell SPD books to Ingram, SPD books are also Ingram titles. You know, our relationship with Ingram is very similar to our relationship to Amazon, which is to say that they're a customer. And so they typically dictate to us the titles that they'd like to buy. But I do feel like the relationship is a little bit more flexible. Ingram has taken recommendations for us in the past. And I actually was in a meeting with Andy Hunter from Bookshop to speak to him a little bit more about how we can optimize that relationship and to make sure that our books are being represented on this platform that is supposedly for like indie bookstores and you know, small press books. And I think that, you know, we're gonna start trying to optimize it first of all by sending them more metadata and making sure that they have listings for more and more of our books, and therefore we'll be able to order more. I would say that having a direct relationship with Bookshop in this way means that we have significantly more leverage with Ingram, right? Like we can say, hey, like you will want to buy this title because people on Bookshop will want to order it, which is not something that we've had in the past. So I'm interested in seeing how that works out. I will also say that, you know, this is a long ways off because I think that Bookshop has been doing a lot very quickly, but we would like to work towards doing direct fulfillment with Bookshop to be able to ship out Bookshop orders directly from the SPD warehouse so that we don't have to take that middle step of shipping books to Ingram and then having, you know, those Ingram books shipped out to customers and then having SPD take a cut and Ingram take a cut. I mean, that's the thing about Bookshop for small press publishers who are with SPD, and I'll be honest about that, which is that like it's just one more middleman, so your cut just gets smaller and smaller, and that's not that great. But I do think that, you know, more generally in the sort of struggle against Amazon, getting people to switch to Bookshop is a first step. And because of that, we're going to try to optimize our relationship with them. But like I said, it's just going to take a little bit of time. But we are working towards direct fulfillment. And for now, if you want to be on Bookshop, it is possible for us to be able to make that happen.
Awesome. So unless Janice has anything to say about that, anything to add?
I think Trisha covered that really well.
All right. Well, unless there's any kind of questions, or maybe one more question, but we're reaching the end of our time here. And I don't see any, so I'm gonna assume. We did make a survey, a satisfaction. Oh, here's a question. Will SPD have a direct relationship with Bookshop?
I just answered that question, Matthew. I mean, we hope to, but I think that they've done a lot very quickly and they need a little bit of time to work out. Yeah, for ordering, like as in for Bookshop customers to order from Bookshop and then have the order be fulfilled for us. Yeah, we talked to Andy about that and we're gonna work towards it. That's the sense that I get. For now, the priority is getting more data of our books on the Bookshop website and be able to have more representation in general on there. The schedule for that is basically like Andy needs the fall, and then we'll have a conversation with him in the spring about making those channels clear for direct fulfillment. I think that one of the concerns that obviously is coming up is just that, you know, SPD is a smaller warehouse and therefore shipping might take a little bit longer, but you know, our warehouse has also tightened up significantly in the past couple of years. So we're hoping that it will work out, and I'll definitely keep everybody updated. That's something that we would like as well. It will make the cut for publishers much larger. So just want you to know that we acknowledge that.
Awesome. And that concludes our workshop for the very first installment of SPD Summer School. I just dropped a link in the chat that I would love for y'all to check out and click through to and fill out as an appreciation for filling out the survey that lets us know how this did, what you might like to see. You get a 15% discount code for any purchases from spdbooks.org. And of course, we have thousands and thousands of wonderful titles. And if you need a recommendation, you can email me at e@spdbooks.org and I'll give you a list. And yeah. Thanks to Hilary, Janice, and Trisha for presenting and doing such a great job. And thanks to y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Shoot us an email. It's what we're there for. We appreciate all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yay.
Thanks, E.
Yes, thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.